Taking Metaphysics Seriously. Kant on the Foundations of Ethics by Sonny, Elizondo and from UC Santa Barbara, University of Santa Barbara. Alright. Forthcoming in the European Journal of Philosophy. Please cite the final version. Okay. Oh, my face is kind of in the way here, isn't it? Well, if I keep to the top, I suppose. It's fine, it's fine. Actually, it's not fine. Whoops, I'm in the wrong place. Can I? What's going on? That is fine. Right. Ask most philosophers for an example of a moral rationalist, and they will probably answer Kant. Oh. I don't know what a moral rationalist is. I guess we will learn. No wonder, Kant's first great work of moral philosophy, groundwork of the Metaphysics of Morals, opens with a clarion call for rationalism, proclaiming that the necessity to work out for once a pure moral philosophy completely cleansed of everything that may be only empirical and that belongs to anthropology. Right. This was a mouthful, wasn't it? So what does this mean? The necessity to work out for once a pure moral philosophy. What does that even mean? Pure? Oh, from pure reason, of course. That's Kantian, pure reason. That's what he wants. Completely cleansed of everything that may be only empirical and that belongs to anthropology. Oh, that's interesting. So, the Metaphysics of Moral, he wants to create a moral that is not based on culture. Yeah, that's it. He doesn't want to base it on any social current structure. He wants, yeah, the pure reason. That is what Kant likes. So he wants to just think about it and come to morals from what he calls a priori. A priori meaning in the sense that it's before empiricism. It's by pure thought, by pure reason, by pure rationality. Yeah. So moral rationalists using logic and whatnot to come up with morals. I think that's an impossibility, though. My guess, just, oops, sorry about that. Like early on in this is that we're gonna run into the problem that there's gonna be smuggled opinions in here. Yeah, that's what I think. It's gonna ignore like everyone else. It's just gonna ignore Hume's guillotine, and it's gonna bother me. Right. Such a metaphysics of morals, as Kant calls it, is indispensable. Is the indispensable foundation of ethics, understood as a system of laws or duties. It is not that empirical and anthropological consideration play no role in ethics. It does, after all, speak of an empirical counterpart of metaphysics under the name of practical anthropology. Yeah. We're talking about he wants to build first principles. That is what he wants to do. Just like in physics, we use a lot of maths, for example. He wants to find some basic ground rules to build all other ethics from, because it's so much, when it becomes cultural, it's all very wobbly. There's no stable ground to stand on. It is just that these considerations play no role in the foundation of ethics, no role in establishing the system of laws or duties, or so it has seemed. I think I disagree, right? If I would go to my own idea of like the basic building block of ethics, it would be just consideration. It would be consideration of the introverted, introspective consideration, not necessarily empiricism and cultural stuff. It's just that there is, like, my laws and my duties, they are generated from within. So I look in, introspect, and I find by different strategies, I find these. And then we build, and you find yours, and that person over there find theirs. That makes sense? People just introspect and find their morality and their ethics and what they think should be laws and duties. And then we generate laws or duties through democracy, right? We build up a structure around the empiricism of these things. So for me, the foundations, if you want to build a philosophical foundation of ethics, that would not be system of laws or duties. Well, actually, one duty. The duty and law would be the law of introspection. That you study your own mind and find what it is you think. That makes sense? That could probably be a foundation for ethics. It doesn't prescribe any sort of behavior except for the introspection and building of the moral worldviews, I suppose. That was a sidetrack, sorry, let's continue. Recent commentators have by and large resisted this austerely rationalist reading of Kant. Of course, they say the moral law, the first principle of ethics, must be pure. Yeah, and when they say pure, it is free from empiricism. It's just pure rationalism. Pure logic, pure thinking. Right. And that makes sense. I'm using pure in my view of it, right? I'm using pure differently. It must be pure opinion from the individual. But it does not follow from this that more particular laws, the second principles of ethics, that is, duties of truthfulness, beneficence, etc., must be pure as well. Yeah, of course. Cascade says, so essentially common sense. Alright, Cascade, when you say common sense, what do you mean? Because I tend to reject the idea of common sense. Because my understanding of common sense is what people say is that this is what people should know. Right? That this is common sense and what people should know. And if it is what people should know, I reject that. Because usually what you say what you mean by saying common sense, it is stuff that you as a person have. It is the worldview you have and stuff that you take for obvious. And you think that everybody else should also take the same knowledge for obvious. But they might not. So it's not common at all if it's that way you use it. You mean like truthfulness and beneficence and stuff like that? And since I like philosophy, right? And I reject these as necessary, the duty of truthfulness. Personally, I have my own idea of ethics. I try to always stay truthful as much as I can, but I can also see reasons for lying. Right? I don't think there are a lot of people that never lie. I lie from time to time. I guess most people do from time to time.
What do you mean, armed? Armed with what?
Bad breath,
colourful language. Feather duster, what do you think?
There are uses for lying, and there might even be... You can probably find ethical reasons for lying as well. Caskid says, my argument is so flawed, I don't even want to elaborate. All arguments are so flawed. Caskid says, oh dang, you're right. What I'm thinking is basically, is what you're doing gonna make someone end up for the worse? And that's the thing, right? Who decides what worse means? Make someone end up worse. Who decide what that someone is worse for the wear? Who makes that rule? Do I decide for them what makes their life worse? In some senses I can. But in other cases, right, we're all ignorant. Most of the time when you hurt someone's feelings, you did not mean to. Most of the time when people hurt your feelings, they did not mean to. Caskid says, if the answer is yes, then don't do it. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's... Oh, right. That's a very good point, though. That is a very good rule. That's implied. I didn't think about that. I just assumed. But that's the very basic law of ethics, right? It is, don't hurt other people. That is the whole study of ethics, right? If we take ethics, just rethics, not rhetorics, but ethics. Here we go. And we take let's take Wikipedia, my favorite page. We will find involves systematic, defending, or recommending concepts of right and wrong behavior. Well, that's not what I was looking for. But right, it's just about not making people hurt or physical, mental pain. That's the whole idea of ethics, of having a code of ethics, of following a moral law or whatever. That is the basic principle. That is the first principle of ethics, right? Caskid says, I think learning what makes it worse is the best way to go. That is interesting. So studying psychology is good ethics then. So should everybody study psychology? Why don't we do that in school? Understanding what makes people hurt? Caskid says, oh man, you just punched me. I did not like that at all. Oh, understandable. I shall not do it. Yeah, I like that. We've had that discussion before on the stream, right? There are two aspects. There is two aspects to ethics, right? It is your actual action, the thing you did, the punch, and it was the intent of the action. Right? If you intended to hurt someone, then in most cases it's considered not to be on the positive side of the moral scale, of the moral law. Usually that is, most codes of ethics says, well, don't do that, don't hurt people. Most, not always, but actually not even in most. In a generalized manner. Because it becomes interesting, the question of ignorance. The punch is only considered bad from many points of ethics if that is the reaction, if that is not the reaction. If the reaction is not, oh, understandable, I shall not do it. If that is the reaction, you're fine ethically. If that is not the reaction, you are not, because then you intend harm. But it depends, right? Some ethics go just... They only care about intent. Other parts of ethics only care about consequence. I like something, a mix between the two. Yeah. Indeed, though Kant doesn't really argue for such principles in the groundwork, what little he does say there about them suggests that they do make essential use of the empirical and anthropological considerations. Yeah, just like you said, Cascade. I did not like that at all. That's an empirical consideration, which is just a fancy word, empirical here. If someone tells you that that hurt, that's empirical evidence. Where were we? Anthropological is studying of culture. Cascade says ethics is the intent rather than the action. Ethics is studying them. For example, in computing ethics, you can have ethical hackers, which you can hire. Which you can hire to hack into your company database to check for security flaws, for example. Yeah. White hat hackers, right? And that defines white hat hackers. Oh, there we go. And black hat hackers. They're doing the same thing, but one is doing it for different reasons. Yeah. With consent and... Well, one could argue that they are not doing the same things either. That part of the action. Just like murder and manslaughter, doing those things might be physically like the same button presses on the keyboard. It's the same stabbing in the heart, but it's not the same action because the intent is baked into the action. And the consequences are a focus on that thing, and the consequences of a white hat hacker and a black hat hacker is different. But that's a different type of definition of ethics. Here we're talking about ethics in the philosophical sense. So here we're talking about the study of. So ethical hackers. Something can be ethical, but it can be good and bad in ethics and philosophy. But an ethical act might be me stabbing you is an ethical act. It's just not like the black hat hackers. What they do can be evaluated through the study of ethics, if that makes sense. Yes, Kid says, yeah, if it was manslaughter, I might have stabbed him in the stomach rather than the heart because I wasn't aiming. Yeah, maybe it even was an accident, right? I only ran with the knife and just tripped and fell and stabbed him in the heart, or whatever. Or maybe you just lost control. I think that if you get caught up in a fit of rage, I think that is called manslaughter. And if you regret what happened immediately, I think they usually call that manslaughter rather than murder, because murder is premeditated. Yes, Kid says, he ran into my knife. He ran into my knife 10 times. Oh. Speaking of, I can... Where's that? Wait, where's the GIF? Can I see the GIF? Ah, there he is. Oh man. Oof. That was his defense. That is why he's smiling. Because he stabbed a band member in the back like 40 times. I don't remember. And they argued it was self-defense. He stabbed him in the back. Like lots and lots of times. And they argued self-defense. And that's his reaction to that. That is a great meme. Alright. For instance, his discussions of the famous four examples... Wait, 4 examples? What is this? Following the first 2 formulations of the categorical imperative clearly relies not just on the empirical particularity of the agent's maxim, but also on general features of human nature, such as material dependence. Right, it feels like I need to open up the categorical imperative here, right? Yes, kids is dang. Right, that smile, it's hysterical. Actually, I haven't seen it in context, I've just seen the meme and I've heard the story, so I don't know how true the story is, but that's what I heard anyway. Right. The categorical imperative. So what is the let's just look at the categorical imperative then. Categorical imperative. There is his face. Yeah. The categorical imperative. Whoops. Is that fine? We'll do this. The categorical imperative is the central philosophical concept in the deontological moral philosophy of Immanuel Kant, introduced in 1785. Well, this was before Hume, wasn't it? It may be defined as a way of evaluating motivations for actions. According to Kant, sentient beings occupy a special place in creation, and morality can be summed up in an imperative or ultimate commandment of reason, from which all duties and obligations derive. We're actually learning more and more, and this is not the case. Yeah, this belief, right? This thing turns out, we're studying psychology and we're learning this is not really how it works. And this kind of implies that we make a moral decision with our thinking and decide what to do, like with the moral dilemma. You've probably heard that thing before. You're on a trolley and you have a lever on the trolley. If you pull the lever, you will switch track. On the first track, there are 5 people lying on the track, bound, and they will die. But on the other hand, there is 1 dude lying bound, and that dude will die if you pull the lever. So should you pull the lever? That's kind of the way of thinking, right? That you think and you act. That is what Kant is saying here, but we're learning more and more in psychology that that is not how we work. The decisions are made for us, and then those thoughts, these rational, sentient thoughts we have about morality, the imperatives, the commandments of reasons, they happen after the fact. So when you're actually in this trolley and you pull the lever or you don't pull the lever, this commandment of reason happens after. It doesn't happen before. It happens after the people are already dead when you talk about it. You can, in the situation, in a live situation, you just act. You can, however, change your approach to life and your attitudes and behavioral... What's that word? Patterns. There we go, your behavioral patterns. Let's say, for example, you're out driving, and every time, where you drive, there are a lot of hitchhikers, and you never stop. You never stop. You can, however, decide at home, not in the moment, you don't decide to stop, but you can decide at home, I gotta start picking up hitchhikers. And then you can retrain your behavioral patterns yourself. But that's completely different. We're not talking about commandments of reason anymore. Right, from all duties which obligations derive. So you can do this, but it's not how we work. You can use reasoning to do this, but And it doesn't always work. If you're in a completely novel and a completely new situation that you haven't been before, and you don't have any patterns to fall back to, right, any trained-in patterns of thought, then you will pretty much act on instinct. That instinct have been built, of course, from your worldview and genetics and upbringing and all these things, but you are not in a lot of control in these completely new situations. As Kid says, my favorite ethical problem in computing is the AI that goes into a self-driving car. All the scenarios thought of are things such as: do you avoid the grandma and hit the baby, or do you avoid the baby and hit the grandma? Yeah, and I really like the approach. I've done one of those tests. There is tests where they make those decisions and they do it as... they crowdsource it, right, statistically. So they have a lot of people doing a test and then they gather all the data and make those decisions based on what people do. That's a very democratic approach to it, and that is the approach I like. Instead of having some philosopher or like Kant just sitting and rationalizing why one thing is better or not, and it's all opinions. So the best way in my mind is to give those two statements next to each other and just show that for thousands of people and let them decide. What would you do? Cascade says, if you ask me, if you drift you can hit both, but that's another discussion. Exactly, because the grandma is 5 points and the baby is 10 points, right? So if you get both, you get the 15 points and you got the double bonus, so you get 20 points. 20 points? Yeah. So that's also, it takes the most skill to drift and hit them both. Yeah. Cascade says there's no unfair problems if both get hit. But remember, intent matters. So your intent is murder if you try to hit both. Maybe. So from the law side of things, you will be in a situation where you will get a higher sentence because people will see it. There is a completely other problem. There's no unfair problem, it's another problem completely. Alright, what is the categorical imperative then? It defines imperative as any proposition declaring a certain action or inaction to be necessary. Yeah, and that's not how we work. Hypothetical imperatives apply to someone who wishes to attain certain ends. For example, I must drink something to quench my thirst. That's an imperative indeed. I must study to pass this exam. Indeed. A categorical imperative, on the other hand, denotes an absolute, unconditional requirement that must be obeyed in all circumstances and is justified as an end in itself. It is best known for its first formulation. Here we go. Act only in accordance to that maxim whereby you can, at the same time, will that it should become universal law. Alright, that is the I remember this, the categorical imperative. I like this. Cascade says, sorry bro, I was trying to do a sick drift. Good point. Yeah. The dumb tourist. That I've run that so many times. That has been lies that I've done. Oh, I wasn't allowed to do that? I'm sorry, I didn't know. That works. It works in so many situations. Because we as people care about intent. Right. Act only do stuff if you think that the stuff that you are doing should become universal law, that everybody has to act the same. Oh, that's super interesting. I've been a big fan of Kant, I remember. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Kant. Yeah. Who isn't, right? But the categorical imperative I reject. It's the same. I don't know if you saw that in Lynx's Discord. They had a similar rule. It is very similar. The golden rule. This is very similar to the golden rule, which states that only treat people the way you want people to treat you. The problem with this is that people want to be treated differently. So this maxim, the categorical imperative, kind of creates ideological thinking. And I don't like ideological thinking. Right. Let's say, for example, that I do the Robin Hood thing. I steal from the rich and I give to myself because I'm the poor. Yeah, I am poor, so I do the Robin Hood thing. I steal from the rich and give to the poor. The problem is, what defines rich? Well, that's someone that has more money than me. So what is the universal law? Yeah, that everybody should steal from people that are richer than themselves and give to themselves. I suppose that is... Actually, that maxim. I think taxes are a good idea. And someone would consider that taxes. Right? Stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. Some people would argue that is what we're doing when we're paying taxes. So therefore, with this maxim, that it kind of... If you think taxes is a good idea, then if you mess around a little bit with it and do some mental gymnastics, you can say that, yeah, stealing from anyone who's richer than you is morally okay. And right, if they put up a resistance, then you can kill them in self-defense because, well, what you were doing was you were stealing and they trying to stop you from stealing, they are the antagonist. So they are in the moral wrong when they put up a defense. So in your self-defense, you kill them and take their stuff. You can get to that from the categorical imperative. Or am I doing... Are my mental gymnastics too gymnastically here? Gymnastic-ny? I don't know. Maybe it's... There has to be a flaw in my thinking somewhere, because that doesn't sound like... Cascade says... Dude, I've been trying not to wheeze when I hear the guy's name. I mean, he's my favorite philosopher just because of the name. Yeah. Alright, so what was the category... Why were we talking about the categorical imperative again? For instance, his discussion of the famous 4 examples following the first formulations of the categorical imperative clearly relies not just on the empirical particularity of the agent's maxims, but also general features of human nature, such as material dependence. Yeah. All the acts happen in context. We try to abstract in moral philosophy and in ethics, whatever. We do abstract and we try to generalize as much as we can, right? Talking about murder, but no 2 murders are ever equal. That just doesn't happen. Right? Let's take the typical horrible serial killer that murders little children and do horrible stuff. Take that as an example. Take one of those murders. And then think one of the parents of one of these former children then murdering that serial killer. Both of them are murders from the abstract sense of the thing, but we don't judge them equally. So no 2 murders are the same. We try to generalize, but inherently we can't, I don't think. Cascade says, you need a license for karate. Is that how you pronounce it? Karate. And I'm not allowed to use karate without renewing my license. So I can be arrested even though it saves someone's life through ethical means. Yeah. Yeah, that's how it works. You are a weapon, And you're not allowed to carry weapons out in public, eh? What if these are my weapons? Better cut your arms off. Yeah, that is a can of worms. Interesting indeed. Even in self-defense? That's weird. Right, we cannot know what the principle means for us without knowing something about us. Exactly. Empiricism is required. But I don't think that's... It's still a worthwhile effort to try and look for... what did they call them? The first principles. Basic principles of ethics. Is there a common law that we can suggest that everyone follow? And I'm quite happy with mine. Learn about ethics. Do the introspection. Take control over your ethical behavioral patterns. Cascade says, but yeah, the first rule of karate is when engaging someone in a fight is that you're not allowed to strike them until they hit you. Oh, that's unfortunate. Because in real fights, all it might take is one punch. Yeah. So that's a terrible rule. I like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu rule. If you can, fucking run away. Yeah, if you can, just fucking run away. That's what I like. Right, Cascade continued, which is why when training and practices katas, which is a set of series or movements, each kata starts with a block rather than an attack. One punch! One punch! There we go. I was doing, what was that? What is that thing called again? There is, kata programming. I can't spell, yeah. Code Wars. Yeah, those are katas. It's like a game. The game, you get a small kata. It's a challenge you get, and then you solve it, and then you get another challenge, and then you get another challenge, and so on and so forth. Where am I? Here we go. Cascade says, oh, interesting. Yeah. You kind of seem... You're doing programming, right? You've been talking about it. I was curious about that. Are you a programmer by trade or just for fun? Talking about doing stuff for fun? Oh, that's a gender bent version. Miss Saitama? That was actually a pretty good job. There are more. I've seen that there are others doing the same thing. Some might be better, some might be worse. But this is crowdsourced, and I kind of liked it. Cascade says, I do coding as a course in college. Oh, nice. What language? Now, one might say that this just shows that the second principles cannot belong to metaphysics. Wait, why do we call it metaphysics? Why don't we call it metaethics? I suppose metaethics would be... You would construct metaethics from metaphysics, because you construct everything from metaphysics. No. I don't even know if the first principle cannot belong to metaphysics either. Because metaphysics is about trying to understand how the world works. From a philosophical, like understanding what is the meaning of life and questions like that. After all, metaphysics is pure and these principles are not. Metaphysics is not about how the world should work. It's a big difference. Metaphysics is trying to explain how the world works, while ethics is trying to give ideas how the world should work. Especially therefore. So there's a split here that I want to keep that split. It's a significant difference. Cascade says, well, it's a 2 years course called A-levels. Okay, and essentially it covers a whole range of things, both coding and programming, as well as theory. Nice. But yeah, the names of kata, such as Yan Shodan, translate into things such as Peaceful Mind Level 1. Nice. And this thing is inspired by that structure. They're trying, train on kata. And there are different cues, levels. Metaphysics is pure and these principles are not. Metaphysics are not completely pure though. Are there a priori metaphysics? That's a good question. Kant would probably say that there are pure metaphysics. Cascade says, oh, Q means level, exactly. That's how we grade karate belts. Yeah, exactly. The whole structure of this game is... Right, you earn ranks and honor and collaborative wisdoms, create your own katas and stuff like that. The whole structure is super themed by karate. This is too quick. For one, if they do not belong to metaphysics, then it seems they should belong to practical anthropology. That's a false dichotomy if I ever saw one. But they do not belong to practical anthropology, since Kant is clear that the business of such anthropology is not to establish moral laws, but to implement them, to make them effective in concreto, in the conduct of our lives. Yeah, I think that's the problem. It happens a lot. It happens a lot in philosophy. This black and white kind of thinking. Either it's pure or it's not. There is no gradient of purity available. Right. So, Kant's view, oh man. Kant is a cunt, isn't he? In ethically speaking, because he thinks that his pure reason, it's the philosopher king, right? The philosopher king makes all the rules, and all the plebs we have to implement the rules that the philosopher kings comes up with, and all the plebs should just bend over. Yeah. Cascade says, that is cool, considering it's combining two of my hobbies. Yeah. I was thinking that might suit you. This might suit you. Or maybe we'll just muddy the water and make it strange.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
I have been considering starting doing a few of these on stream when the next time I get interested in coding. As a practice, just doing one of these from time to time on stream. Just like the challenges you drawing stuff, right? Yeah, like the list you were doing. Oh man, that was big stuff. You can do this. These take... Oh, right. That's the thing. I think I leveled up too fast. It makes sense because the kata is something you do over and over and over and over again, right? To practice to become faster. The same with the painting, the list, right? You're drawing to become faster and more skilled by experience. I was going the way that I was, if I could solve one, then I was done with that difficulty, right? If I can solve everybody at a certain queue, I wanted to rank up, but that was a mistake, right? What I should have done was stay until I was fast at solving all of them. Not that I was capable of, but I was fast at solving them. That would make a lot more sense. Cascade says, I do Python, so that'll be fun. I'm working on graphical user interfaces right now. Oh, I never got to that. I thought the graphical user interface design and coding was boring, so I usually skip that bit and just stay in the command line. I love the command line. Cascade says, I'm thinking of doing a stream where I do a list. Nice, yeah. That's a good idea. Cascade says, yeah, you can only go up another grade in karate over 3 months or so. Exactly. I should get a new account and start from the bottom. And maybe, because I was doing Python at the time, maybe do it in C, because I do like the idea of learning C. That's the two languages I've coded in, Python and C. Cascade says, what? The graphical user interfaces is great fun and you can do whatever you want, like swag buttons and stuff. Yeah. There's... we have this saying in Sweden, it's like... taste is like the behind. Split. It doesn't work when you translate it, sorry. Some people like graphical user interfaces, others do not. I like the things that I like is the functionality, just writing functions that do stuff more than just looking good. That makes sense? Cascade says, oh, maybe it did work in translation. It sounded weird in when I said it out loud to me. Cascade says I need to learn Java because yes, Java. Cascade says no, that's the best saying I've ever heard. Oh, nice. You like the one thing, I like the other thing. Alright. The thing is, in Swedish it rhymes. Smaken är som baken. Smaken is taste, baken is the behind. So smaken är som baken, it rhymes. So it becomes very nice. Moreover, when one looks beyond the groundwork to the work it grounds. Oh. Right, moreover, when one looks beyond the groundwork to the work it grounds, the metaphysics of morals, Kant seems to say outright that the second principles belong to metaphysics. The consequence of showing what in the particular nature of human beings, which is cognized only empirically, can be inferred from universal moral principles. Why are the sentences always this long? They're always so long. Cascade says it's complementary rather than the same when it comes to taste. What do you mean? I didn't get that bit. In the context. Let's see. Seems he's outright saying that it belongs to metaphysics, alright. And we're talking about metaphysics being the one that... Metaphysics being pure is what they think, and therefore the rules shall be written through metaphysics. Alright, showing that in the particular nature of human beings, which is cognized only empirically, can be inferred from universal moral principles. I don't quite understand what he means. Cascade says, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like yin and yang. Yes, yin and yang is split, complementary. Right, exactly. To make a great piece of software, to make a great program, you might need a graphical user interface, and you need good functions. So they together. Like there's often a split like that in programming, right? Back end, front end. Some people enjoy doing front end stuff, and some people like doing back end stuff. I'm more of the back end kind of guy. You might be more of the front end kind of gal. Is guy gender neutral? I think guy is gender neutral, isn't it? Historically, it's been about men, I suppose, or boys, or whatever. But I think it's become gender neutral. Oh. Cascade says, you can't have two butt cheeks in the same place. They gotta be split to function. Nice. Yeah, good point, yeah. Exactly. Cascade says, I mean, you can't really misgender me since I'm just happy someone refers to me in the first place. Nice. Oh, actually not very nice. That's actually a little bit sad. Nodrunner says, hi, I'm new. What's the stream about? Hello, Nodrunner. We're looking at a paper. Alright, we're reading a paper, and the paper is called... How are you doing, by the way, Nodrunner? It says, Taking Metaphysics Seriously. Kant and the Foundation of Ethics. They're talking about specifically... they want ethics, the code of ethics, to be generated through pure reason. A priori is the fancy philosophical word for it. That you don't need to make scientific studies to make ethical rules. They want to just think about it using rationality and logic and create universal moral principles from that. From this logic. I think it's a fool's errand so far, and we've already found some issues I have with it. And here it's at the very moment we're at a point where I think it's a false dichotomy they're doing, because they're saying that either it's pure philosophy, pure rationality, or it's not worthwhile looking at. I get that feeling, maybe not. Cascade says it's pretty interesting. Yeah, it is pretty interesting. And at the same time, we're also talking about split behinds and karate and a little bit of programming. Yeah, they say that either ethical statements, no, not statements, there's a word for it. Where is that word? Propositions, here we go. Certain ethical propositions, they say that either they have to be either or. Either they're empirically informed or they're not, which I suppose is the truth, but they say that only when you do it empirically, you're not supposed to use the empiricism to generate new propositions, because they're trying to generate first principles. You like first principles. So yeah, Kant is trying to generate first principles, which is an example of Kant's first principles for morality would be this: act only according to that maxim whereby you can, at the same time, will that it should become universal law. And only do stuff that you think should be the law. Which kind of works, kind of breaks. I don't even remember how I broke it. Yeah. Well, I suppose it's an imperative to you. But we've been talking about that a lot, right? You have an abstract idea or perspective on life, the universe, and everything. You have an idea of, this is what I want life to look like. I don't want anyone to torture anyone else, but if you catch my family and just hide them somewhere and they will die without you giving me information, I mean, I will not act according to my ethics. If torture works, if torture would work, I would do whatever it took. And I guess that's the problem. The problem is the problem of abstraction. We abstract, like I was saying before, we abstract murder and look at that as a full thing. We abstract torture and look at that as a specific thing. But no two torturers or no two murders are the same. They just have similar stuff. They have similar stuff in common that makes us group them together, but they are not equivalent or equal. Yeah. Some murders I'm all for, other murders I'm all against, depending on the context. Outrunner says the song is a banger. Nice. VFR by Popski, exactly. I kind of enjoy it, yeah. Cascade says, aye. Oh, wait. Cascade also said, I feel like to have one perfect set of ethics, people would not be able to think for themselves. Do you remember what I said, Cascade, as my view, what could be considered the first principle of ethics? It would be to do the introspection, to think for yourself. That would be the first step towards a first principle. I don't know if that's perfect, but... And what you look for perfect. I don't think something perfect exists in reality. Right. Indeed, if they did not so belong, then that work, the aim of which is clearly to argue for such principles, is horribly misnamed. Wait, what was the name? The groundwork of the first principle? If they belonged to... Ah, it was confusing. Cascade says, the only problem is that there's gonna be one person that doesn't agree. And they're gonna break the laws of ethics. Exactly, but then they have followed, right? They don't agree. I don't have to think for myself. And how did they come to that conclusion? They thought about it. Maybe not, though. Yeah, you've got a point. I'm smuggling in opinions here. Yeah. That is what... So it's not... It doesn't work as a first principle of ethics. Because I'm smuggling in opinions. I'm smuggling in the ideas that I want democracy and I want people to... I want to lessen suffering in this world. I want to have ethics. But on the other hand, we have to concede that the whole point of ethics is that, right? So if one person doesn't agree that their acts don't have to be ethical, then they can reject it. But then they reject ethics, right? They don't reject the possible first principle or the groundwork. They don't reject that idea. They reject the idea that they have to do ethical considerations as a whole. They reject the point of the whole field. Which is fine. Maybe? Right, the issue is not merely terminological. It matters quite a lot whether the second principles... Right, and the second principles, they are more specific rules. Like being truthful. That's a second principle they're talking about here. That is something that that comes from empiricism. Whether the second principles really belong to metaphysics or not, since to call them metaphysical is not merely to label them, but to assert their position in a particular philosophical enterprise. Exactly. I need to look at this. Is my understanding of metaphysics wrong? Or like... Because my understanding of metaphysics, they have used it so many times, I need to see. Right, metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that studies the first principles of being, identity, and change. Space and time, causality, necessity, and possibility. Yeah, being, things that are, things that is. So metaphysics is things that is. You cannot get there, you cannot get any ethical rules whatsoever in metaphysics. Yeah, that it does not work. So wanting to find metaphysical first principles of ethics is a fool's errand. You will not succeed. Notrunner says, you can't smuggle opinions, that's illegal. Next you'll be distributing, and everyone knows opinions are a gateway. Exactly. Can't smuggle them in. Terrible stuff. And that is what you have to do. To talk about ethics as metaphysical, you have to smuggle opinions in here. And if you smuggle opinions in there, then they're not metaphysical, because metaphysical stuff cannot be opinions. They're trying to describe what the world is, not how it ought to be. Right. It's not merely to label them, but to assert their position in a particular philosophical enterprise. Exactly. We have not appreciated this point because we have not paid sufficient attention to Kant's claim that metaphysics of morals is the practical counterpart of the metaphysics of nature. Yeah, so I would be happy, much happier if they didn't call it metaphysics. Why not just call it metaethics? Or what are we actually talking about? They're yeah. Essentially, like, the essence of the two things we're discussing are completely different. Nodon says, oh, I get to open and try a new bag of coffee today. Exciting. Nice. Exciting stuff. Hope it's some tasty coffee. Is there anything specifically exciting about it, or is it just new? Cascade says, my reaction, but with tea. Oh, so British. So British. Sorry. Oh. I mean, when you conform to the stereotype, you can't really blame me for just noticing the yeah. Cascade says, Lamau, it's fine. Oh, that brings me. I was traveling along the Trans-Siberian. No, the other one. Well, it's the Trans-Siberian. Okay, and there was this British dude, and he had his tea and biscuits, right, every day, and we could set our clocks after him, local time. That was weird. That was so weird, but it worked out. Local time, we could set our clocks after his tea and biscuit times. Right, Cascade says, I love blooming tea where it's dried up flower that opens up. Oh yeah, nice. The mouth's fine. I conform to the British stereotype. There we go. So British. Where was I? Sufficient to metaphysics of morals is the practical counterpart of the metaphysics of nature. Yeah, look at that. They're using the word counterpart. So maybe it is metaethics. They're not specifically talking about metaphysics. It's just it's a counterpart. So it's not metaphysics, it's the metaphysics of morals. Still a fool's errand, though, if you're trying to use the same methodologies. In making this claim, Kant is not simply telling us that practical philosophy, no less than theoretical philosophy, must have a priori foundations underwriting its laws. Actually, that's a very good point. Cascade says Queen Lizzie fan club. Queen Lizzie? What is that? I recognize that name. I'm terrible with names. Oh, Elizabeth. Of course. Oh, Queen Lizzie. Nodon says, I have two choices. 8 o'clock, the original, or 365. Pleasant morning buzz. Vienna roast. What time is it? That's what I say. What time is it? It must be like 4 in the morning for you now? 3, 4 in the morning? Or if you just woke up? I don't know. 3 a.m. There we go. So 8 o'clock kind of implies morning. If you just woke up, then I would go for the 8 o'clock. And otherwise I would go for the 365 if you haven't gone to sleep. And also unsolicited advice. My apologies, that's just... You do you. That's how I would think about it. There we go. Caskid says, she's single, you know, Queen Liz. If you need a sugar mama, now's your chance. Oh yeah, that's gonna go well. Date with the Queen. Maybe I would be simping too much and she would find that off-putting. Right, he is telling us something very specific about how these... Oh, actually, yeah, that's the point, right? Must have a priori foundations underwriting its laws. That's actually a very interesting point. That like, all knowledge... We all have to concede skepticism. That it's... We don't have a direct access to anything. And just like maths, we've just made a couple of assumptions. They're called axioms in maths. And he is arguing that a few axioms in first principles in ethics would be a good idea. Because all knowledge comes a priori first. That is what happens. So trying to build an a priori structure for your ethics, whatever you try to do in ethics, if you don't have a stable a priori ground to stand on, that actually fits very well with Hume's guillotine. Right? Physics have a pretty good ground to stand on. We have falsifiability metaphysics. When we build ideas about how the world works, we turn that into science and we look at falsifiability. That is how we create science. How do we create a code of ethics? What kind of principles do we build it upon? Actually, damn it, I'm blinded by the sunshine of my own ideas. I go back to the democratic approach. The introspective approach, then we just everybody introspects and figure out for themselves with one methodology or other, or they learn about ethics and they make up their own mind. And all the people's minds are the basis for the laws. Right? The laws that we create then are based on the collection of the people. So whatever the people we would have to assume that the individual is the primary source of information. And if the point of ethics is to reduce pain and suffering, then we have to listen to the individuals. What they say is what they feel suffering from, because individual A does not suffer the same way individual B does. We know that. Therefore, we have to base it on that reporting. No? Maybe? Note owner says 8 o'clock doesn't specify morning or night. Ooh. It was just me who implied it. But 365 specifically says morning buzz. Oh, right, it did say morning buzz. I just missed that morning buzz. I just saw the buzz and skipped the morning word. Good point. Like that logic. On the other hand, you can just flip a coin as well. Roll a dice. Have you read The Dice Man? I have to reread the book. I read it, though it must have been over 10 years ago, but I do if my memory serves, I do recommend it. I remember running around with a die in my pocket for weeks after reading that book. Cascade said, whenever I hear the word guillotine, it makes me think of my old French teacher who would jokingly threaten to out us in the guillotine if we don't answer right. Woof! Because she's French. I got the joke, yeah. Because she's French, even more stereotypical stuff, eh? Nodoner says, I had this dream that I had to fill something out on a public computer. And there was a line of people waiting behind me. And I was taking a lot of time because I was struggling with the keyboard. Oh wow, it wasn't my special custom keyboard, so I wasn't used to it. What a nightmare. You have to make another special keyboard, a new custom one that is more portable, that you can just carry around with you. So you have with a USB, so you can just plug it in and do the thing. Cascade says, oh, that's interesting. Oh man, I think I was way behind. Node Runner's dream was interesting. Cascade says also, yeah, she liked to follow the French stereotype. Kind of patriotic, if you ask me. Maybe. Node Runner says, this one is pretty portable. Need an even more portable one. What if you take it with you and then you forget it at the computer and then you come home and you don't have a keyboard? So if we go back to my idea of the introspection thing. It's actually, now that we think about it, right, from one point of view, it's kind of like the categorical imperative. This is also, it's kind of implying introspection. Will that it should become universal law. It's kind of... So instead of telling people how to act, I think that's the mistake in the categorical imperative. That... the meta-ethics or the metaphysics of ethics, that it tells people how to act. It's instead, the way I would change it would be only construct maxims whereby you can will that it should become a universal law. But that doesn't work again as well either, because it's still too close to acting. Construct maxims. Do evaluations. Do ethical alright. Only create judgments on ethical behavior where you will that. But that becomes circular in its definition. That doesn't work either. Eldoner says, then the line of people behind me are going to take a long time trying to use my stupid custom keyboard. Serves them right, eh? Now says, I got my friend into keyboards and I was teaching him how to play Factorio yesterday. Oh, love that game. And I was showing him alt mode and he was like, what if I don't have an alt key right now? Oh, you do need, well, can you you can probably switch that in options, right? You can just change it to key bindings, but yeah. Oh man, that mode, I play with that on, full stop. That's how I play Factorio. The alt mode is on, it has to be on. Let's continue. Didn't get anywhere with that. Do we get to it a priori? I mean, a priori is such a vague point because it's about people. As soon as we're talking about ethics, it's about people, so you can't really... Right, you need to have some experience in living to talk about ethics. It's about people, therefore pure a prioriness is not a thing, I don't think. Cascade says, I've been sitting here hugging a massive plushie and staring off into the distance, and I'm wondering where I'm having enough sleep in my brain. If you don't, I really recommend it, because sleep is important. Yeah. It screws you up if you don't have enough sleep. So whatever you need to do to get enough sleep, do that thing. That's the first principle of... not ethics. Well, depends. You can see yourself as a person and you treat yourself. So, self-care? Exactly, self-care. Nodona says that alt mode should be on by default in Factorio. I agree. He is telling us something very specific about how these foundations are to be understood and so the relevant laws established. Metaphysics, both of these parts of philosophy employ a common methodology, a methodology that generates significant parallels in both form and content. I'm not convinced. In particular, metaphysics in general have two ordered parts. The first, which is wholly a priori, setting the stage for the second, which is partly empirical. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, if you go that whole route, then that similarity I agree with. Yeah. If this is right, then it is not just the case that the metaphysics of morals does encompass second principles. It must, for the provision of such principles, impure though they are, is in fact the very point of meta-ethics. It's the point of ethics and metaphysics, yeah. It is the whole point. We create a framework to get somewhere.
Oh. It's down there somewhere. Let me take another look.
Nodona says, my dad spent his whole life not getting enough sleep and now he's having memory problem in his 50s. I'm not saying they're related, but it can't have helped. It's very difficult to draw those kind of conclusions, right? But yeah, can't have helped indeed. Cascade says, yeah, it's just that I went to bed like 10 p.m. and I woke up at 8. So 12 hours is good, but my brain is like, no. Well, I usually sleep 2 times a day. I don't sleep 12 hours a day, no. That's a lot of sleep. For me, it varies. Some nights I sleep like 7, some 6. Others I sleep 10. So it varies, but I think I get enough sleep. I think I'm exhausted not because of a lack of sleep. I've been exhausted for days now. I think it's because of the move. Yeah, the move took a lot out of me, and I'm still getting used to the new place. I haven't unpacked, it's just a mess. This whole place is just a mess. And it's gonna be for a while. I'm just putting on a back burner. No, says it is impossible to oversleep, and also it's impossible it's possible you have some kind of sleep apnea, and so you're not sleeping when you think you are. Yes. Right? It fucks up your sleep. I mean, significant others love to complain about snoring. Snoring is actually very unhealthy. You need enough oxygen. You need all the oxygen. Not get oxygen deprived and fucking up sleep. On that note, being a man of routine that I am, I think it's lunchtime. Yeah. I feel that this is a good spot. Damn it. Oh, it's fine. Yeah, stopping here at page 3. Wait, why does it say page 1 when I'm... Here we go. At the end of page 3. And we continue reading tomorrow. Yeah. Cascade says, my cat snores when she feels safe. Nodorna says, my cat snores too. Sometimes my cat snores, but not a lot. You know, I was gonna get a new cat. I didn't get one. Stuff changed and they didn't have a cat for me. So now I'm considering if I should go out hunting. Looking. Sorry, I'm not eating a cat. I'm getting a new family member, maybe. Cascade says, so she makes little snore noises when I'm nearby. Are you talking about purring? Purring or snoring? Right. But for me, it is lunchtime. So thanks for hanging out. And have a good one, yeah.